Legends from the Void. The Great Hall of the Galactic Consortium Archives stretched for kilometers, its crystalline walls housing the collective knowledge of 17 sentient species spanning 12,000 years. Chief Archivist Zev Kara moved silently through Section 7 Delta, her 6 delicate appendages barely disturbing the dust that had settled on shelves untouched for centuries. "Activate privacy protocols," she whispered, her voice triggering the shimmering barrier that isolated her from the main archive. What she was about to access wasn't technically forbidden. The consortium didn't forbid knowledge, but it was certainly discouraged. The terminal hummed to life as she pressed all 6 of her appendages against its surface. Access historical mythology records, pre-consortium era, keyword, humans. The terminal pulsed a soft warning purple. Files categorized as speculative cultural mythology. Scientific consensus. No factual basis. "Do you wish to proceed?" "Yes," Zev Kara replied, settling her segmented body onto a hovering platform. The display illuminated with images and text describing creatures that stood on 2 legs, with only 2 arms, lacking the proper number of sensory organs for any spacefaring species. According to the myths, these humans had once dominated a significant portion of the galaxy before mysteriously vanishing approximately 7,000 cycles ago. "Fairy tales to frighten young offspring," muttered first observer Pelmiruk from behind her, causing Zev Kara to startle so violently she nearly fell from her perch. "Observer, I didn't hear you enter," she said, quickly regaining her composure. "Privacy barriers work both ways," Pelmiruk said, his facial ridges tightening in what passed for amusement among the Vendari. "Still obsessed with your human myths, I see." Zev Kara's neck frills flattened in embarrassment. "Not myths. There's evidence. Incomplete archaeological findings and corrupted data fragments," Pelmiruk interrupted, waving a dismissive appendage. "The Consortium Scientific Council has rejected these theories 17 times. 18, Zev Kara corrected quietly. "My latest petition was denied yesterday." Pelmiruk's expression softened. "You're the finest archivist in the consortium, Zev Kara. This fixation is beneath your intellect." Before she could respond, her personal communicator pulsed urgently. "Archivist Zev Kara, your presence is requested in the extraction laboratory immediately," came the voice of her assistant. "This discussion isn't finished," Pelmiruk said as she hurried past him. The extraction laboratory was chaos when Zev Kara arrived. Researchers moved frantically between workstations, their normal methodical calm replaced by what could only be described as excitement. "What's happening?" she demanded. Her assistant, a young Malorian named Thrill, bounded over to her, his luminescent patches glowing bright blue with excitement. "The Deep Reach expedition has returned. They found something in the abandoned sectors, something impossible." Zev Kara followed Thrill to the central examination chamber, where a small object sat inside a containment field. It was cylindrical, approximately the length of her forearm, made of a material that gleamed with an inner light. "Initial scans confirm it's approximately 7,000 cycles old," said Chief Researcher Vex. "But that's not the impossible part." He manipulated the control panel, and the cylinder projected a holographic display. Symbols appeared, unfamiliar yet somehow recognizable to Zev Kara. That's the human language from the myth records," she whispered. "Yes," Vex confirmed. "And we've translated a portion of it using the fragmentary lexicons from your research." The translation appeared alongside the original text. "Warning. Stalker class entities, DDTCTED in CT2 or 19. Fall back to DZIGN 8ED say if he zones. Operation Shadow Retreat INITIATED." "There's more," Thrill said, barely containing his excitement. "Show her the rest, Chief." Vex nodded and adjusted the controls. The hologram shifted to display a star map, one that matched their galaxy, but with unfamiliar designations and boundaries. The dating is precise, Vex said. This object is exactly 7,342 cycles old, and it was created by a spacefaring civilization that has left no other trace of its existence. Humans. Zevkera breathed. Perhaps, Vex conceded reluctantly. But that's not why I called you here. He highlighted a section of the star map. These coordinates indicate a location in what we now call the void expanse. Nothing's there, Zevkera said. It's empty space. That's what we thought. Vex's voice dropped lower. Until 3 days ago, when our long-range sensors detected energy signatures emanating from that precise location. Deep Space Monitoring Station Epsilon 9 was never meant to be exciting. Its primary function was to collect data on stellar phenomena and relay communications across the vast distances between consortium worlds. Lieutenant Commander Drakmor had spent 15 uneventful years at his post, and he expected to spend 15 more before retirement. Until today. Sir, the anomaly is growing, reported sensor technician Prill, her tendrils writhing with anxiety. Drakmort floated to her station, his gas-filled body shifting hues from calm blue to concerned purple. Show me. The main screen displayed a region of seemingly empty space, but the sensor readings told a different story. Energy readings unlike anything in consortium records were spiking, creating patterns that defied natural explanation. It started 16 hours ago, Prill explained. First just background radiation fluctuations, but now, as if responding to her words, the empty space on the screen began to distort. Light bent around invisible masses, and then, with a flash that temporarily overloaded their sensors, objects began to appear. Ships, hundreds of them, materializing from nowhere. By the first ancestors, Drakmor whispered. Initiate first contact protocols and alert Consortium Command immediately. The ships, if that's what they were, hung in space, their designs unlike anything in Consortium records. Sleek, angular vessels with strange geometric protrusions and no visible propulsion systems. They formed a perfect formation, neither advancing nor retreating. Sir, we're receiving a transmission, Prill reported, her voice trembling. It's using outdated consortium communication protocols. Protocols that haven't been used in thousands of cycles. Put it through, Drakmor ordered. The main screen flickered, and a figure appeared that caused every being on the command deck to freeze in shock. It stood upright on 2 legs, with 2 arms folded across its torso, and a head with only 2 visible sensory organs. Its skin was bare of scales, feathers, or proper protective covering. It was, impossibly, exactly like the mythological humans from Zevkera's research. Greetings, citizens of the Galactic Consortium, the creature said in perfectly translated standard speech. I am Fleet Commander Rise of the United Earth Alliance. Humanity has returned from our long exile, and we bring urgent warnings of what follows in our wake. The Grand Council Chamber of the Consortium had never convened an emergency session with all 17 species representatives present in living memory. Yet here they were, the leaders of the most powerful civilizations in known space, gathered to confront what many still believed to be impossible. Archivist Zevkera had been summoned to present her research that had been dismissed for decades, now suddenly vital to understanding the crisis unfolding at their borders. The historical records, though fragmentary, speak of humans as an aggressive but innovative species, she explained, her voice echoing in the vast chamber. They expanded rapidly through this sector of the galaxy approximately 8,000 cycles ago, establishing colonies and outposts that archaeologists have attributed to various lost civilizations. First observer Pelmerok, representing the Venduri on the council, leaned forward. And their disappearance. The myths speak of a great calamity. Yes, Zevkera confirmed. The records suggest they faced some catastrophic threat, one they could not defeat. Instead of fighting to extinction, they implemented something called Operation Shadow Retreat. They abandoned this region of space entirely. The massive doors to the chamber slid open, and a delegation of 5 humans entered, escorted by consortium security forces. They moved with a strange grace despite their seemingly unstable bipedal locomotion. Their leader, a female human with silver streaks in her dark hair, stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Helena Chen of the United Earth Alliance," she announced. "For 7,000 years, humanity has rebuilt in the shadows of distant galaxies, preparing for this moment." "Preparing for what exactly?" demanded the Zithrak representative, his razor-edged mandibles clicking with suspicion. Ambassador Chen's expression remained composed. "For the return of what drove us away. We called them the Devourers. They are not like you or us. Not life as we understand it. They consume energy, matter, information, even light itself." She gestured, and one of her companions activated a holographic display, showing strange, shadowy entities that seemed to bend reality around them. "We fought them once and nearly perished," Chen continued. "We retreated, not in cowardice, but in strategy. We left behind warning systems, what you might have discovered as strange artifacts or anomalous energy signatures throughout the abandoned sectors. The monoliths," Zev Kara whispered, remembering the mysterious structures scattered throughout the galaxy that had defied explanation. Chen nodded. "Early warning systems. When they began activating in sequence, we knew the Devourers had returned. We've come back to warn you, and to fight alongside you, if you'll have us." The council erupted in debate. Some argued this was an elaborate deception to justify an invasion by these supposed humans. Others insisted that even if the threat was real, the consortium could handle it without help from mythological beings. The debate might have continued for hours if not for the urgent message that appeared on every counselor's personal terminal simultaneously. Outpost Sigma 7 had gone silent. Its final transmission contained only screaming and a visual of strange, shadow-like entities moving through the station. Ambassador Chen's eyes showed no surprise, only grim determination. "The Devourers have arrived," she said simply. "Will you stand with us, or shall we all die separately?" Alliance of the Stars. The Consortium Military Command Center buzzed with activity as officers from a dozen species worked alongside their human counterparts. 3 weeks had passed since the humans' dramatic return, and the situation had deteriorated rapidly. 7 outposts and 2 colony worlds now lay silent, consumed by the advancing Devourer fleet. Fleet Admiral Korvash, Supreme Commander of Consortium forces, studied the tactical display with his 4 eyes, mandibles clicking in frustration. "Their advance is methodical," he noted. "They're consuming everything in their path: resources, energy, information." Human General Maya Santos nodded grimly. "That's their pattern. They don't conquer, they consume. What they take becomes part of them. Knowledge, technology, even biological matter." Korvash's exoskeleton shifted uncomfortably. In the 3 weeks since the humans had arrived, he'd been forced to adjust his understanding of galactic history, military strategy, and the nature of the threat they faced. The humans moved differently, thought differently, fought differently than any species in the consortium. Yet their tactical insights were undeniable. "Your weapon systems," he said, gesturing to the specifications displayed on a secondary screen. "They're unlike anything in our arsenal. How did you develop them?" 7,000 years of preparation," Santos replied. "When we retreated, we took samples of Devourer biology with us. We've spent millennia studying them, finding their weaknesses." Archivist Zev Kara, who had been granted unprecedented access to these military discussions due to her expertise on human history, stepped forward. "The ancient texts mentioned lightbenders and phase-shifted weaponry. Is that what these are?" General Santos smiled slightly. "Your translations were remarkably accurate, Archivist. The Devourers exist partially out of phase with normal spacetime. Conventional weapons are only partially effective. These phase-shift cannons attune to their resonance frequency, forcing them fully into our dimension where they can be destroyed." A junior officer rushed into the command center, his bioluminescent patches flashing urgent patterns. "Admiral, Long-range sensors have detected a massive Devourer fleet approaching the Helios cluster. Corvash's inner eyelids flicked rapidly in alarm. The Helios cluster houses our largest civilian population centers. Billions of lives. We need to deploy immediately, Santos said, already accessing the tactical systems. If they consume those worlds, their power will increase exponentially. Corvash hesitated only briefly before making his decision. Prepare for full military deployment. All available ships, including the human fleet. We make our stand at Helios. The battle above Helios Prime was like nothing in recorded consortium history. 5,000 ships, the combined might of the consortium and human fleets, faced off against the advancing Devourer armada. The Devourers didn't use ships as other species understood them. They traveled in massive living shadow forms that bent light around them, appearing as holes in reality itself. On the bridge of the flagship Guardian, Zev Kara watched in horrified fascination. She had insisted on being present, arguing that someone needed to record these events for posterity. Assuming there would be a posterity. First wave, engage. Admiral Corvash commanded. Deploy phase shields as instructed by our human allies. The consortium ships, hastily retrofitted with human technology, moved in perfect formation. As the Devourers approached, the ships activated their phase shields, creating a barrier that forced the shadow entities fully into normal space. The effect was immediate and terrifying. What had appeared as amorphous shadows resolved into nightmarish forms, writhing masses of tentacles and teeth, larger than battleships, with surfaces that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. Second wave, target exposed entities with phase shift weapons. General Santos ordered from her position beside Corvash. Beams of coherent energy lanced out from the combined fleet, striking the now vulnerable Devourers. Where the beams hit, the creature's substance seemed to crystallize and shatter. For a moment, it appeared the combined fleet had the advantage. Then the largest of the Devourer entities began to pulse with dark energy. Evasive maneuvers, Corvash shouted, but the warning came too late. Waves of anti-energy burst from the Devourer, washing over dozens of consortium ships. Zev Kara watched in horror as vessels simply unraveled, their matter and energy absorbed into the growing mass of the Devourer entities. They're adapting to our weapons, Santos said grimly, just as they did before. Admiral Corvash's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of intense concentration among his species. We need to fall back. Regroup. No, Santos interrupted. Retreat is what we did last time. We've spent 7,000 years preparing for this moment. She accessed her communication system. This is General Santos to all human vessels. Implement Protocol Omega. Across the battlefield, the human ships began to move in new formations, their engines pulsing with strange energy signatures. They positioned themselves in precise geometric patterns around the largest Devourer entities. What are they doing? Corvash demanded. Before anyone could answer, the human ships began to emit synchronized energy pulses that converged on the Devourers. Where the pulses intersected, reality itself seemed to fold, creating localized distortions that enveloped the shadow entities. Dimensional anchoring, explained Santos. We're forcing them fully into this reality and binding them there. As the Devourers struggled against this new attack, the human flagship, a massive vessel called the Remembrance, moved into position at the center of the formation. All consortium vessels clear a minimum safe distance of 50,000 kilometers, Santos ordered. What's happening? Zev Kara asked, her voice barely audible over the chaos of battle. Something we hoped we wouldn't need to use, Santos replied grimly. The culmination of 7,000 years of research. The Remembrance's hull began to glow with impossible energies as it channeled power from the entire human fleet. At its core, something was building. A reaction that made reality itself shudder. Dimensional inverter activated, reported a human officer. Targeting largest Devourer cluster. A beam of pure white energy erupted from the Remembrance, striking the heart of the Devourer formation. For a moment, Nothing seemed to happen. Then, with a silent flash that somehow screamed across every sensor and communication channel, space folded in on itself. Where the largest concentration of devourers had been, there was now nothing. Not emptiness, but an absence so complete it defied description. The remaining devourer entities recoiled, their shadowy forms writhing in what might have been pain or fear. "Target the secondary clusters," Santos ordered. "All consortium vessels with phase weapons, focus fire on the disoriented entities." The combined fleet pressed the advantage, methodically eliminating the remaining devourers. Without their largest entities to coordinate them, the shadow beings fought individually, still dangerous, but no longer an unstoppable force. Hours later, as the last devourer was reduced to crystallized fragments, an exhausted silence fell over the command center. Casualties had been severe, nearly 30% of the combined fleet lost, but they had prevailed. What was that weapon?" Corvash finally asked, his voice subdued. General Santos sighed, suddenly looking far older than before. "We call it dimensional inversion. It creates a localized pocket of inverted space-time that essentially erases the target from existence. The research cost us centuries and entire research stations. You developed this specifically to fight the devourers." "Yes," Santos confirmed. "And this was just one group. Our long-range sensors have detected at least 3 more devourer fleets approaching from different vectors. This war is just beginning." 6 months later, the Grand Council chamber was once again filled with representatives from all 17 consortium species. But this time, they were joined by an 18th delegation, humans, now officially recognized and no longer relegated to myth. Ambassador Chen stood at the center of the chamber, her expression solemn as she addressed the assembled leaders. "The devourer threat has been contained for now, but not eliminated. Our scientists believe they will return in greater numbers, having adapted to our current strategies and technologies. Then we must adapt faster," declared First Observer Pelmeruk, who had become one of the strongest advocates for human integration after witnessing their sacrifices in battle. "Precisely," Chen agreed, "which is why I propose the formation of a joint research and defense initiative. The consortium has resources and knowledge that humanity lacks, and we bring perspectives and technologies you haven't developed." Archivist Zev Kara, now elevated to senior historian of human consortium relations, stepped forward. The historical records suggest that before their departure, humans were working on technologies that even they considered theoretical: dimensional engineering, consciousness transfer, matter-energy conversion beyond anything we've achieved. "Those projects continued during our exile," Chen confirmed. "Some succeeded, others failed. But with the combined scientific prowess of all our civilizations, we can accelerate development exponentially." The council deliberated briefly before the high chairperson rose to speak. 7,000 cycles ago, humanity faced an impossible choice: fight and perish, or retreat and prepare. You chose the latter, preserving your civilization and returning when we needed you most. The chairperson's sensory fronds extended in the formal gesture of highest respect. The consortium acknowledges its debt and welcomes humanity not just as allies, but as kindred species. Together, we will face whatever darkness the universe sends next. As the council session concluded with the formal signing of the Alliance Charter, Zev Kara found herself standing beside General Santos, watching the historic moment unfold. "You knew, didn't you?" Santos asked quietly. "Even before we returned, you believed we were real." Zev Kara's neck frills rippled in what humans had learned was her equivalent of a smile. Myths don't leave behind technology that defies explanation. Legends don't create warning systems that activate millennia later. You were always real, just waiting for the right moment to return. "And now?" Santos asked. "Now," Zev Kara replied, "we write the next chapter of our shared history, not as separate civilizations, but as one united force." Outside the council chamber, visible through the vast crystalline dome, The combined fleet of human and consortium vessels hung in orbit, sentinels against the darkness, guardians of a future that, for the first time in 7,000 years, held more promise than dread. Humanity had returned from legend, and the galaxy would never be the same.